So to describe God as infinite is limiting. Infinity is one of his tricks, his bag of tricks. So he can be infinite, which means express himself infinitely, or not express himself at all. He doesn't have to be infinite because he doesn't have to express himself. When he does express himself, there's no limit. Or there is a limit, whatever it is he wants. So if we try to understand things from the bottom up, we know there's a creation. Now let's try to figure out from some evidence in the creation who the creator is and what he's like. Very tough job. The Rebbe uses this example of it. You walk into a classroom and on the blackboard it says equals 4. Now you're going to try to figure out, whoever wrote that, how did he get to the 4? Infinite possibilities. But if you walk into the classroom and it says 8 minus 4, there's only one answer. Much easier to go from the question to the answer than from the answer to the question. So when you start from the bottom and trying to figure out the creator, it's hard. You'll figure out something, like for example, the creation is finite, so the creator must be not finite. It's about as far as you're going to get. The creation once wasn't, so he has to be eternal, he always was. You can come to certain conclusions, but you're not going to get to know him. Whereas if you start with him, which is really the logical way to start. In the beginning, there was just him. There were no ideas, there was no wisdom, there was no seichel, there was no kindness. There was just him, whatever that means. So what happened? Whatever happened has to be coming from just him. In other words, it has to be significant or important or desirable to him. And that's why you can't say, oh, he created the world to do us a favor. There was no us, there were no favors.
So this sort of leads into why I wanted to do the recording today, because in the last conversation that we were having here, so there's just him, and then there's this stirring, as you put it. But that the stirring is already a step down in a certain sense, because you're stirring towards something. And sort of the way I was always explaining the idea of God needs, that the taiva is essential. Taiva loy latzmusoi. And a few people that saw the video that we posted from the previous conversations were asking this question: is the taiva essentially part of him, or is it a step down? Is the stirring a step down?
Maybe it's a language problem, but if you say taiva, something happened. Now there's taiva. So taiva is already describing an activity or something stirring. Something is happening in him. But is it for an external purpose? Is it to achieve something other than him? No, this is him.
But why isn't Yisrael V'Oraisa also that same idea that something's happening? You're giving a description, which is where people sort of get thrown off with the God needs idea. that there are no descriptions. So if you say he needs the mitzvah, you're already talking about need, you're talking about mitzvah, or taiva, you're already talking about a dira, you're talking about tachtoinim.
Okay, so that's true. That's legitimate. To say he needs is already describing some movement and some. The important thing is that he needs. And he means him, not machshava gduma da'ak. If you talk just about him, you can't use language. All you can say is he is he. I am what I am, and that's all what I am. So as soon as you start using language, you're already. Everything we can say about him is him revealing himself. But revealing himself could be notching down through tzimtzum, or no, just him. But him, the way he lets us see him. That's what's going to happen to us at Love after Tchias HaMesim. He will let us see him. Not he'll make us see him, because then something is. But v'nigla kved Hashem, or im niten reshus la'ayin. So it's not like something has to happen, something has to. No, just let him be him. So when we say, for example, bechira atzmis, okay, bechira is already an early stage function. Even taiva is already. And what does it say about the taiva? I think the whole lashon. We should look it up. Where does it say in the Sav HaKadosh Baruch Hu? In the Medrash. The Medrash begins. It says, Tchilas Brias Ha'olam is because Nesav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's really not describing Torah, and it's not describing Yidden. It's describing Bereshis Bor Elikim, Es HaShamayim Ves HaOretz. That begins with a taiva. But what about Eden and Torah? Maybe that's not even a taiva. That's just him. So you can say Bereshis Bor Elikim Bishvil Yisrael Bishvil HaTorah. So the taiva is to have a dira b'tachtonim. Where do Yidden fit in? Well, that's who he wants to have the dira with.
But even the movement that he was yachid and he wants to be echad, that movement, that yearning, has to be coming
Him.
from him. I'm saying just what throws people off is Nesav HaKadosh Baruch Hu dira b'tachtonim. He desired a dwelling place in the lowest world. So if you say that absolutely essentially is coming from him, you're already talking about dwelling places, you're talking about lowest worlds. How can you put that together? It sounds like it's already not coming from his essence, and therefore they say, Was kriegst du in Atzmos? Like, it's really hard because of the language barrier. Like, it's hard to really to pinpoint or to nitpick or to split hairs. This is where you're getting to I guess problems, and we're trying to convey a certain point.
You know, if that was people's problem, it would be pretty good.
It seems like.
But the question's a good question. How do you remain atzmus in tachtenim? Well, that's the whole idea of kol hagvoya yesa yered lamata yesa. That's only atzmus can do that, and that's closing the circle. The whole point is to complete the circle. It begins in atzmus, and it has to end up back in atzmus. And how does that happen? B'tachtenim. So when you get to the tachten mamish, you're back to Atzmos. Not you're far away. In the same way that reproduction, making another human being, which is really completing the circle. You were born, now you give birth. It happens in the lowest function of the body. So here's the delicate edel part. And I think that's what the Rebbe means in Tanya. That you're hugging the king while he's wearing a garment. Are you still hugging him? That's exactly what we're talking about. If you're doing a mitzvah, you're putting on tefillin, how is this connecting you to him? You're doing his rotzen, you're fulfilling his mitzvah, you're becoming bottled to machshava, whatever, to chachmasa yitzene, but how is it him? The misunderstanding is not him. The misunderstanding is the tefillin. You think the tefillin is just a sleeve, and you're not really hugging the king. It's not a sleeve. It is him. That's the tricky part. If Hashem needs a mitzvah, then he's obviously limited. Oh, because you think a mitzvah is limited. Your problem is with the mitzvah, not with him. And that's why the Torah keeps telling you, this is not what meets the eye. There's more, and there's deeper, and there's higher, and then there's echad. Kul echad.
So the Rebbe Rosh Hashanah Ranat was saying, Torah Chadash Me'iti Tetzeh, that in times of Tchias HaMesim, when Mashiach comes, people are going to realize how one with him Yidden are and mitzvahs are, and essential the dir v'tachtonim is. Meaning, right now, when you ask people, does God need your mitzvahs? The majority say, venzech u'meret, depends where you're talking about. Ultimately, the higher up you go, the less the mitzvah matters. It's only on a certain level. And that's what needs to be revealed. God's saying this is much more personal, much more essential than you've ever thought.
Right. So we've spoken about this many times, and it's not coming across convincingly, I guess. The higher you go, the less the mitzvahs are necessary. True. The lower you go, the more the mitzvah is necessary for tikkun. Bitter nitzutzes and tikkun ha'olam, and the higher you go, tikkun ha'olam, who cares? But that's talking about function.
Right.
So it's not a contradiction. Like, on some level, mitzvah gereres mitzvah. On some level, the mitzvah doesn't function. It's him. So once you get past all function, then you're talking atzmos. In function, there are many levels, where the function is most essential, less essential, and totally uninteresting. So to say that all of Torah exists to clean up the world, David HaMelech was criticized. Zmides Korasile. Oh, that's what Torah is? A little poem?
Little function.
Yeah. So you take that to the highest levels. Anything you say about mitzvahs, it does this, it does that. That's what you think a mitzvah is? This is him. Well, let's mention something we haven't spoken about before. This argument, what business do you have talking about Atzmus? What is that argument? What is that saying? If you're talking about Gan Eden and Gehenna, that makes sense, because you prefer Gan Eden over Gehenna. So it's Nogeya, right? It's relevant. Talking about him, what's your business? How does it affect you? If it's purely him, then it's private and mind your own business. That's a total disastrous way of thinking. The whole point is that I have to give him my etzem. So Atzmus is not an irrelevant subject. It's my job. My job is to give my etzem to his etzem. If I don't know what his etzem is, so I can do b'chol levavecha, I can even do b'chol nafshecha. Can't do b'chol me'idecha. I can't give him me'idecha if I don't know what his ma'id is. So the whole avodah is to give your essence to him. You give your essence to his essence. Otherwise, you don't give birth to anything. It's got to be etzem to etzem. So his atzmus is extremely negeya, particularly in Golus, where we don't have the other functions of, great holiness and great scholarship. All we have is our etzem that we have to give him. Now we need to know his etzem. We need to know our etzem. So when you say the etzem of a Jew, nicht will und nicht kann sein Gerissen von Holocaust, it can't be? What is that? Oh, my essence. Well, if my essence is that it can't be separated from him, I think it's logical to say that that's his essence. He can't be separated from us.
So what's the uncomfortability? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you found the uncomfortability with people's making it so personal and talking about him in such a real way?
The same problem with, what is it called, commitment phobia? It's hard to be that close. Scary. Talking to certain people, and you ask them about the Eibishter, beyond the obvious, and they say, can't know that. But they say it with such glee. It's like, phew, can't know that, can't know that. If I had to know it, that would be heavy. I'm so relieved that we can't know him. Let's party.